Patrick Swayze was never just another name in Hollywood. He was the man who won over millions of people with his dancing. The man who made love stories seem genuine, and the man who smiled even when life gave him cause to break. But underneath the charm and strength was someone who was quietly fighting a battle that no one else could see. His last words, said in the softest voice, meant more than all the adulation he ever got, because they showed who Patrick really was when the spotlight went out. The diagnosis. Patrick's view of the world altered permanently in early 2008. He was 55 years old and still at the top of his game. People respected and revered him, and he seemed unstoppable. He had just finished filming the pilot episode of The Beast, a violent TV show in which he played an FBI agent who was willing to break the laws for justice. It was a part that brought back memories of his raw intensity, which was a mix of roughness and spirit that had defined his career. But something inside him had started to turn against him, even if he always smiled and was there. It began as a dull aching in his stomach, something that most people would ignore as fatigue or indigestion, but the agony just wouldn't go away. It got worse while they were filming, and he sometimes had to bend over between takes. His friends told him to go to the doctor, and when he finally did, the news was terrible. Pancreatic cancer is one of the most deadly diseases that doctors know of. When the doctors brought him the news, they also told him something that not many people can ever really get ready for. The cancer had already spread, and he didn't have much of a chance of living. At most, 6 months to 2 years. It felt strange for a man who was known for being strong, disciplined, and full of energy. But Patrick didn't act like most people would have. Lisa Niemi, his wife, was with him at that appointment and reported that he didn't cry or get angry. He just sat there silently, soaking it all in and nodding. It wasn't a lie. It was acceptance with a lot of strength. That day, he started talking about treatment choices and agreed to start chemotherapy right away. He also signed up to take part in a study of an experimental medicine called vadalinib, which is meant to stop the blood arteries that feed his tumor. But it's hard to keep things private in Hollywood, and the story got out to the press within days. In January 2008, tabloids were spreading stories saying he would die. Magazines showed pictures of a slimmer, more tired-looking Swayze. But he stayed calm during every interview. He said firmly, "I'm not done. I still have a lot of life to live." Many people may have stayed out of the public eye, but Patrick did the opposite. He kept working because he was set on finishing The Beast. He wouldn't let the agony stop him, even when it got worse. He told Barbara Walters in 2009 that he was a miracle. "I'm not going to give up without a fight." At that moment, the world saw what kind of person he really was. Not simply a star, but a fighter with a spirit that can't be broken. Fighting the impossible. In late 2008, when Patrick came back to the set of The Beast, the cast and crew couldn't believe what they saw. He was thinner, paler, and obviously in discomfort. But his energy was still high. He always got to the set before everybody else and didn't want any special treatment. He often had to film for 12 hours a day while quietly going through treatment in between. He wouldn't even take severe medications at work since he didn't want to lose focus. Later, director Michael Dinner said that Patrick was never late. Never said anything. You would never know he was unwell if you didn't know. His wife, Lisa Niemi, was his rock behind the camera. Every morning, she drove him to the studio, provided him with his medicine, and waited for him to film. Patrick claimed he didn't quit working because it makes him feel alive. Acting wasn't just a job for him. It gave him a cause to get out of bed and kept his mind off of death. But the media didn't feel the same way about his dignity. Tabloids wrote harsh things about how he looked, guessed what his last days would be like, and even said he was dead months before it happened. Patrick talked directly on the rumors. He added half-jokingly, "They're writing my obituary before I'm gone." But it was clear that he was angry. He didn't want pity, he wanted seclusion. The Beast, on the other hand, got good reviews when it came out in January 2009. People were amazed by how intense he was, not knowing that he had filmed every scenario between chemotherapy sessions. His performance was raw, strong, and tragic once people understood what he had to go through to make it happen. The show was cancelled after one season, but it became a symbol of Patrick's bravery. His last professional victory before his body gave out. At that point, he had lost a lot of weight. He could scarcely eat and every breath was hard. He continued going, though. He told an interviewer, "I'm not afraid of dying. I don't want to leave the one I love behind." Love throughout the worst times. Lisa Niemi had been Patrick's quiet support for more than 30 years, long before he became famous or got sick. Patrick was the young teacher who saw her potential when they met when she was only 14 years old and a bashful student at his mother's dance school in Houston. A few years later, they fell in love, got married in 1975, and formed a life that celebrity never ruined. Lisa stayed the same through every movie, every scandal, and every accomplishment. When cancer arrived into their lives in 2008, that dedication became something holy. Lisa was more than just a wife. She was his nurse, his guardian, and the one who spoke for him when he couldn't. Every morning started with the same gentle routine, checking his temperature, getting his medicine ready, and helping him move when the pain was too much. She writes in her memoir, Worth Fighting For, that they lived every day like it was their last. But we never stated it out loud. Their house in Los Angeles became a place of peace and strength. They read, listened to music, and watched the sun go down over their ranch. Patrick would often tell her that the ranch was the only location where he didn't feel like a superstar. He just felt like a man. He once quipped, "I'm not a star when I'm here. It's just me." People who came to see him in his last months were surprised by how calm the house felt. Lisa was almost always by his side, even when he was too frail to move. At night, she would talk to him softly, read books out loud, or play their favorite classical CDs. Even though Patrick was clearly getting weaker, their bonds never faltered. They had originally wanted to have kids, but after a miscarriage years ago, they decided that their marriage would be their legacy. "We don't need kids to be a family," Patrick once said. "We mean everything to each other." That realization hit him hard in his last year. Even when his body gave out, their love just became stronger. It became something that couldn't be broken, not even by death. The last fight. By the spring of 2009, Patrick C's health was at its worst. The treatments that had once given them hope were no longer functioning. Doctors told him the truth, the disease had spread to his liver. They couldn't do anything else. That kind of news would be too much for most individuals to handle. But Patrick dealt with it with the same calm strength that had always been a part of him. He decided to spend the rest of his time at home, where it was quiet and away from the commotion of Hollywood. Lisa, his wife, wrote down everything that happened over those days. She would write down his temperature, what he ate, and even how he felt every morning. It was her method of coping, of converting misery into something useful. She later wrote that he never complained. "He tried to make me feel better instead of showing me how much pain he was in." Patrick read, listened to music, or sat quietly by the window that looked out over their ranch for most of his free time. Visitors claimed he radiated tranquility, a type of acceptance that could only come from a guy who had made peace with his life. There were still times when it was hard. He went to the hospital in January 2009 with pneumonia, which is a hazardous side effect of treatment. A lot of people thought it was over, but Patrick astonished everyone by getting better and going home a week later. He intended to fight until the very end. Lisa stated he wasn't ready to give up on life. Not yet. Lisa was the one who gave him his medicine, fed him, and held his hand while he was shaking. She wouldn't leave his side, even when she was tired. Their home used to be full with laughing and the sound of horses outside, but it got quieter every day. But it was never a place of hopelessness. It was a place of love, where two people held on to each other even though they knew they would have to let go. Patrick's health got worse at the beginning of September. He couldn't stand on his own anymore, and he spoke in whispers. He still smiled at Lisa, though. It was the kind of smile that communicated all that words couldn't. The last words. It was peaceful on September 14, 2009, in the afternoon. The kind of silence that makes you think the world is holding its breath. Patrick C's lay in bed at home in Los Angeles, where he had spent so many tranquil days with Lisa. The sunlight came through the curtains, and at that calm, quiet time, it felt like time was moving more slowly. His breathing was shallow, and his eyes were half closed, yet they weren't scared, they were serene. Lisa sat next to him and held his hand, exactly like she had done every day since he got sick. In her biography Worth Fighting For, she said that Patrick had gotten too frail to talk much. But at one point, she got near and said, "I love you." He moved his lips for a second and muttered back, "I love you." Patrick Swayze said those words for the last time. It was plain and straightforward, but it was everything. 3 words sum up a whole life of struggle, success, fame, and misery. Lisa added that at that moment, she knew he was at peace. Patrick took his last breath a few minutes later. He was 57 years old. There were no reporters, no flashing cameras, and no last performance. There were just 2 people who had loved each other for almost 35 years. Lisa sat with him long after his heart stopped, placing her head on his shoulder and saying the words over and over. Later, she wrote, "I love you. Even though he was gone, I kept talking to him because I didn't want to think he wasn't still listening." Patrick's spokesperson said in a short message a few hours later that Patrick had died. There was no public funeral or big goodbye. Only family and close friends were there for the private memorial. But the news of his death made people all over the world sad. People came to the places where he filmed Dirty Dancing and lit candles and left notes that said, "Nobody puts Patrick in the corner." It wasn't just losing an actor. He was a man who lived and died with grace. The legacy goes on. Patrick Swayze's name never faded in the years after he died. It just became stronger. He was more than just a movie star to millions of fans. He stood for discipline, humility, and the bravery to confront death with grace. His roles in Dirty Dancing, Ghost, Point Break, and Roadhouse still have an effect on people of all ages. Each movie is a remembrance of the man who put his heart and soul into every role. Lisa and I wrote the memoir Worth Fighting For in 2012, not long after he died. It tells the story of their love and the agonizing last months of his life. It wasn't a sad novel. It was a sign of strength. She said that Patrick confronted death with the same courage, humor, and love as he did life. Her comments brought peace to millions who had been mourning in silence. In November 2009, a commemorative stone was put up at the Mountain Lake Hotel in Virginia, where Dirty Dancing was filmed many years ago. It quickly turned into a place of pilgrimage. Every year, fans from all around the world came to see him and left notes, flowers, and even dance shoes in his honor. The documentary I Am Patrick Swayze came out in 2024. It has poignant interviews with his co-stars Jennifer Grey, Demi Moore, and his brother Don Swayze. Jennifer said, "Patrick didn't play good men. He was one." Lisa kept going with her purpose even after she lost her loved one. She became a vocal supporter of the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, using her voice to get people to donate money and learn more about the disease. She won the Spirit of Hope Award in 2023 and gave it to Patrick in memory of him. She added in her address, "I couldn't stop him from leaving. But I can make sure he never goes away." Patrick's legacy lives on even now, beyond the screen. People still hear his song, "She's Like the Wind," on the radio and on streaming services. His movies are still great, and his narrative still gives hope to anyone who is facing an impossible battle. He showed everyone that love is stronger than fear. And that even after you die, you can still teach people how to live well. The narrative of Patrick Swayze isn't just about loss. It's about having the strength to live fully, love passionately, and deal with the unthinkable with grace. His last remarks weren't spectacular or planned. They were real. It was said by a man who had already given the world everything he had. He taught us what really mattered, even after he died. The people we care about and the times we spend with them. Now we want to hear from you. What is your favorite Patrick Swayze scene? The one that still makes you cry or grin today? Please tell us in the comments below. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss more tales about lives that will never be forgotten and legacies that will never fade.